This is Bumper to Bumper Radio, the car show. Drive in anxious and cruise out confident. With the best automotive information for your vehicle. Bumper to Bumper, helping you and your car feel better. And now your hosts, Matt Allen and Dave Riccio.
Well, good morning, everyone. Good morning, and welcome to Bumper Radio. I am Dave Riccio, here along with my good friend Matt Allen, and we are here to help you with the car every Saturday from 11 to noon right here on News Talk 92.3 KTAR. Car questions, car problems, car purchases, and we just got done watching a segment of used cars. So anyway, the best way we know how to educate you on your car, I don't know what I'm talking, 602-277-5827, 602-277-KTAR. You can also get a hold of us at Bumper to Bumper Radio on Facebook. We're checking our Facebook from time to time if you got a question there. Today on the Bumper to Bumper Roadmap, the worst cars ever. Did you own one of those? Did you have one, Matt?
I don't know, maybe. I've worked on a few.
Yeah, I remember those cars. Some of them were our retirement. Open phones, and then I got an email from Sally this week on diagnostic trouble codes. It was a lengthy email. She said, don't you guys just plug in with your little tool there? That tells you what's wrong with the car. And then there's a code, and what the heck is a code? So I think we should clarify diagnostic trouble codes. You know, since the mid-'90s, they started to be popular.
Well, 80s, and whenever there was, the advent of a check engine light. Remember that, speaking of the worst cars made, remember the Chevette? There was a flag that would drop in front of the odometer at a certain miles. You would cover up the mileage. I think it was triggered to come on at 60,000 or something like that. And this little yellow flag would come and go in front of the...
How much older than me are you? Because I don't know.
That old. That's, probably like an 82 or 4 Chevette or something.
I was born in 77.
Yeah. Well. So... but yeah, diagnostic trouble codes. What people go to the AutoZone or to the I checked the codes and I just right here they said it's a bad oxygen sensor. That's what the code says. No, that's not really how it works, and or not even really how it works at all.
Well, in the old days, I mean, when we first had onboard diagnostics, there was a computer and you could literally put a jumper or paperclip between two terminals.
Well, on GM cars, they would have the ALDL connector, the Assembly Line Diagnostic Link.
And then you would count the flashes. If the thing flashed 12 times, that meant this or that.
We had a special little key, and you plug in between that. I think it was the A and the D or the A and the B terminals on the connector there, and then the light would flash. You'd get, like, say for a code 33, you'd get blink, 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 and then a pause, and then the light would go blink, blink, blink 3 more times. You get a code 33, or 4 times followed by 41, and then you go to your book. There was nothing really to plug in. I mean, you could plug in to look at some data, but you couldn't necessarily plug in to get the code.
It's nothing like what we have today.
No, and then the old Dodges, you could take the key on, off, on, off, on. On the third time, then the light would start flashing. There was several different things to trigger, and you count the light flashes, and then you get your code. Well, now, modern cars, 96 and newer, is OBD2, Onboard Diagnostics 2, and everything was more universalized for emissions controls and I guess globally synced, if you will, so that the codes, PO 171 on a Dodge means the same thing on a Mercedes as a Ford, as a Toyota, as a Honda.
Well, what we're looking for, and it is the first thing we do, we plug into the vehicle when there is a problem or there has been an event or a check engine light came on. And what it is, the onboard diagnostic computer is consistently running self-tests or readiness monitors.
Right.
So it's checking all the voltages from all the sensors, and it's checking this sensor, comparing it to that sensor. And when it sees something that doesn't fit, it creates an event in the computer or a diagnostic trouble code.
Turn on the light. And so there's the two things. There's one where the readiness monitors are doing the tests and constantly testing 8 or 9 different systems that constantly are being checked to satisfy the federal emissions requirements. But then just in the program of the computer, the way the engineers have designed the mapping, if you will, if something's out of range and the computer wants to see, for example, we'll use engine temperature. The computer's going to look at the engine run time, and it's going to know the car's been on for 14 minutes. You've been driving at varying between 21 and 45 miles an hour.
It should be up to 200
it's
degrees.
in overdrive, but it's only 120 degrees on the engine temperature. That's not right. Something's wrong. Boom, turn on the check engine light. That sets a code, and that code is our starting point. To get back to Sally's question, what's the code? The code is our starting point to then go in and start doing the test to find the problem on your car.
It points us in the right direction. It lets us know if we're working on the front door or the back door. What are we working on?
Right, but then you have to drill down. So you might have Dave's waving his finger at me.
Well, I just I scribbled down 5 common codes because there is some Acme Auto Parts. You can go by there. They plug in this ALDL connector, and they'll say, hey, we've got this code. Well, the 5 most common that I see are O2 sensor codes, engine misfire codes, evaporative system codes, EGR codes, and CAT efficiency codes. Those would be the top 5 right there.
Yeah, that would be safe to say, but then I'll argue with you a little bit and say there is. So I was about to say there's no oxygen sensor code. There's not something that you just plug in and it says, oh, you have a bad oxygen sensor. What the oxygen sensor is in that equation, it's just the messenger. It's a sensor that's in the exhaust, monitoring the content or the oxygen content of the exhaust, and based on that content, we know how the engine's running. Not enough fuel, too much fuel. So the oxygen sensor is just going to say, he's not sending a computer that says, I'm a bad guy. He says, I see a problem. But then we just have to determine, is the oxygen sensor lying to us? Or is he really just telling us somebody else is misbehaving and we need to go find that problem?
Well, let's take the next one, the misfire code. So the computer recognizes we have a misfire. Well, there's a P0300, which is generic misfire. Sometimes the P0300, you got to do a little more work to find out which cylinder is missing. Now, when it's real evident for the computer, it can pick it up. It's a P0302, which would be a cylinder number 2 misfire.
Or a 308 would be an 8 or 4, or so on and so forth.
So from there, we know we have a problem with cylinder number 8, but do we have a bad injector? Do we have a vacuum leak somewhere near there? Do we have a spark plug or a wire breaking?
Or a bad ignition coil? That's one of the common ones. People will have a misfire and I'll just go put a new coil on. Well, sometimes that's a good guess, but not always. You could very well just have a bad spark plug or a fuel injector that's dirty or hung up or a vacuum leak. So then you want to start looking at what do they have in common.
Right.
What's the common cause or the common denominator?
So they point us in the right direction. Then we need to drill it down to what's actually going on. In some cases, I know in transmissions, because that's what we do, you can have a transmission come in and it has a solenoid B code. Well, that solenoid B code may be a bad computer. The computer could be brain dead. There's no code for bad computer, not generally. There's a few out there, but most generally there's not. The only way we figure it out is we look at the data, and 1 + 1, it says it equals 4. Well, we know we've got a brain problem.
Something's gone haywire. And we're talking just right now about the ones that turn on the check engine light. But there's different modules in the car. So we're going to have the PCM or the ECM, which is powertrain control module or engine control module. The Germans like to call them DME, digital motor electronics.
Then body control module.
BCM, body control module. That's going to control functions like the cruise control, windows, different lighting functions, maybe your vanity lights on and off, your door chime.
We've got the ABS module. That's a big one. There's an airbag module.
But the ABS light will at least turn on.
It's a red light, correct.
It will typically turn on. No, it's yellow or orange.
Is it?
Yeah, that'll turn that light on. But then some of these codes, we'll do a module scan of the car and might find there's body control module codes, but there's no. That's not going to trigger a light to come on. So there's no warning, and it's typically because you really don't have a problem per se that you're going to break down. But.
Well, that's a good point. And when we come back, I want to explain to you about some of the cheap code readers out there and how far they go, and can you believe them or not? So we've got open lines at 602-277-5827, 602-277-KTAR. You are listening to Bumper to Bumper Radio.
Bumper to Bumper on News Talk 92.3 KTAR.
Well, good morning and welcome back to Bumper Radio on this beautiful first day of fall in Phoenix. Beautiful. I was out early this morning, Dave, at a soccer game bright and early. And it's going to be another weekend of soccer, but most importantly, right now we're here at Bumper to Bumper Radio, like we are every single Saturday at 11, to help you with your car. So if you have a question about maybe a car you want to buy, a problem you're having with a car, maybe you're looking for a good repair shop, advice, anything you need related to your car, all you have to do is give us a call, 602-277-5827, or Bumper to Bumper Radio. You can find us on Facebook. Send us an email. We will always answer any car questions, car problems that you may have when we're not on the air. So,
well, it's hard to talk about diagnostic trouble codes, check engine lights, and not mention emissions. We've got anything post 96, OBD2. In the old days, they put a sniffer in your tailpipe and they sniffed your exhaust gases.
I know where you want to go with this, Dave, but even not. But
nowadays they just plug in with what we're talking about, and they're looking for codes because the computer does its own tests on the vehicle, and if there's a check engine light, you automatically fail.
Well, what's funny, the computer does the test, and I just thought about it, the computer does the test, but it doesn't know the answers.
That's
right. I mean, really, it just
correct.
knows there's a problem. Something happened.
Just
here.
waving a flag. Hey, we got something going on over here.
Yeah.
Go look over here. And codes do save us a lot of time, especially on intermittent issues. So sometimes we get phone calls, and that's the first question. You got any check engine lights? Because that's really going to help at least get us to the right end of the car as far as looking for the problem.
To drill it down. And one of the other things that we see, speaking of emissions, one thing to tell you, too, just to save you some time, if you have the check engine light illuminated in your car, don't even bother going to emissions. It's not going to pass. The second to that is clearing the code just to then go around the corner and drive in. It's not going to pass either because the readiness monitors that we talked about in the first segment, these monitors are constantly testing, and they have to pass or give a green light to the computer that says, hey, it's all good down here. Things are running right. There's no problems. Once those tests are good and confirmed, then you can go through emissions. So, but we get the failed slip, and then people come and say, "Oh yeah, see, it's got a code for an EGR valve." The guy at the emissions station, he says, "I need an EGR valve."
Do you think he's got a 30% chance of being right?
No, probably not.
20%?
Maybe, yeah.
There is sometimes where the code really does point us in the right direction, but if you want the shop to be 20% accurate and you spend money on it, then that's what we would do. But really, we got to do our due diligence and pin down that code and see what's going on with it. So, before the break, I mentioned the cheap code readers. At my shop, we've got 5 different scanners for different vehicles. And we were working on a BMW the other day, and we don't have a BMW-specific scanner. We can get in there and see some codes, but in order to diagnose the transmission, we had to go to the ABS module, and our scanner wouldn't do it. So I had to take it down to Joel at Arizona Imports. Hey, can I borrow your scanner so I can scan this BMW?
Yeah. I've got the same one he's got, 25 grand to tap into the Beamer.
Yes. So that little thing you see on TV that you plug in and just tells you everything wrong with your car. Boy, I wouldn't have a job if it was that easy.
No, and and sometimes it is very easy. I mean, we'll quote people, "Hey, we need a window. We need $199 to diagnose your car. Do the testing." I mean, diagnosis implies a conclusion, but we want to test and we want to find out. Well, sometimes we'll go right to the problem. Well, most shops are not going to charge you the full time. We need some room to wiggle because sometimes we'll go in there and we'll find a code, identify it, fix a vacuum leak, and the whole thing's wrapped up and finished for less than what we thought we might need for the testing time.
Well, let's go with Greg in Phoenix. It looks like he's got a Suburban and he's got a code question. Go ahead, Greg. You're on Bumper to Bumper Radio.
Hi, guys. Thanks for taking my call. And actually, my issue is right on point of what you're speaking about. I have a 2003 Suburban that threw a catalytic converter code about 6 months ago, and I researched it and was going to put in a new catalytic converter until I realized it was going to be over $400. But now my registration and emissions are due. And one of the questions that I had was, do I go ahead and replace the O2 sensors that are throwing this code on either side of the catalytic converter when I replace the converter just to save myself the time and headache of possibly just being an O2 sensor?
Well, not necessarily. I mean, you need to, if someone's done the testing and the diagnosis to make sure that what's happening, let me back this up a little bit. What's happening when that catalyst efficiency code comes on, that particular model is going to have oxygen sensors before and after the catalytic converters. They're probably on the right side and the left side, so you may have 4 of them, and you may even have 4 catalytic converters on that one, maybe 2. But one sensor's reading what's going into the converter, the next one's reading what's coming out, and it wants to see a difference. If it doesn't see a difference, Boom, there's your catalyst efficiency code. Catalytic converter not working properly. A lot of times they're in the beginning of OBD2, early 2000s, late 90s, the parameters were just too tight.
Too tight. It couldn't make it happen.
So
a lot of efficiency codes that you didn't need.
So we fixed these by reprogramming them. And we didn't make up the program. The manufacturers provide us with the information. We load it onto the computer. It opens that window up, the window of tolerance for the efficiency. So if you've got over 100,000 miles and if the catalytic converters are bad, it's probably a good idea while you're there to replace the oxygen sensors. You're not going to have any labor to do it typically. But those sensors can be $150 each, so you've just added maybe $600 to your repair.
Cheaper than the cat, though, so is it worth starting there?
No, it's not worth starting there at all if that's not the problem, because that's the point. We can do the testing to find out. You're going to spend $100, maybe $200 testing to confirm that the catalytic converter is bad or that the oxygen sensors are good, and if they are, why would you replace them? If you want to do that as your diagnostic avenue, throw good parts at the car, but you very well may end up spending more money.
Now, I can't hear his question and not think of other shops where they've used aftermarket catalytic converters and it doesn't fix the problem because, and this is something I learned when I was at one of the recycling plants for catalytic converters here in town, and they said, we will pay some of these used converters or converter cores, we'll pay $300 for them. Just for a used one that they're going to break up and get the platinum out of.
They're good. Well, and what Dave's talking about, the recyclers take these and they get stolen a lot, or they used to. With the scrap metal yards will buy them, and
because of the metal that's in them, it's valuable.
Because the precious metal, yeah. So.
But they'll give $300 for a factory OEM converter, but yet they're only willing to give about $5 for an aftermarket one. So you may highly think if you're going to replace that catalytic converter, that you do want to go with a factory one as much as possible.
Well, and not only that, but remember, the catalytic converters don't just fail for no reason. Something kills the cat. Something does that. So we'll talk about that a little bit more.
Well, when we come back, we've got open lines at 602-277-5827. You're going to learn about the 10 worst cars ever made. You're listening to Bumper to Bumper.
I was excited to be relocating from Wisconsin to Arizona, but my Jeep was hesitating, literally. I managed to get here, but I knew I needed help. I went online and found out that I could be looking at up to $2,000 or more on parts alone for a transmission repair. Now, I was hesitating. Being female and new to the Valley, was someone going to take advantage of me? Take all of my money? Who could I trust? Then I heard about Tri-City Transmission on the Bumper to Bumper radio show. I visited bumpertobumperradio.com and checked out Tri-City's reviews. I then gave them a call. Mike set me up with a rental car and walked me through the process. Imagine my pleasure when Tri-City's owner, Dave Riccio, personally called me to let me know that I had to replace some leaky hoses, but I had not burned out my transmission, and the charge was only $271. This is Marcia. Trust me, I now know why Tri-City Transmission is where friends send their friends.
Hi, I'm Matt.
And I'm Dave.
We're the car guys from the Bumper to Bumper radio show, heard right here on News Talk 92.3 KTAR every Saturday from 11 to noon.
Bumper to Bumper radio, it's just like your favorite warm and comfy blanket for all your automotive needs.
Yeah, I guess you're right, Dave. And we're here not just on Saturdays, but 24/7 at bumpertobumperradio.com for all the very best repair and service shops in Phoenix.
Yep, right advice, products, and partners are all at bumpertobumperradio.com.